There's no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a successful fundraising strategy and plan.
People are nervous, right? It's a big deal. We're raising $10 million, even if we're raising $1 or $3 million, depending on the size of the org.
Major gift fundraising is not deadline driven. It really is probably the only type of fundraising, along with planned giving, that is not deadline driven.
AI comes on the scene that's affordable, accessible, that can provide insights and personalization at scale.
That's the first core element of this fundraising engine or funnel, is making sure that the top of your funnel, the beginning of your fundraising process, you are in front of the right people.
What do the people we serve need? And how do we open the door to help them get there?
What happens a lot of times is we get this discomfort or this fear, and our brain tells our body to stop.
We can acquire donors and we can automate everything. And that's where I worry, at least personally, around the perils of AI, that it would remove humans from the interaction.
This is the Intentional Fundraiser podcast.
Welcome to the Intentional Fundraiser podcast, where we explore the art and science of transformational fundraising, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Tammy Zonker, and today we're diving into a topic that's as tricky as it is timely: navigating the fine line between fundraiser and donor. But first, let me ask you, have you ever felt a twinge of guilt when asking a donor for support? Or maybe hesitated to make the ask because your relationship with that donor feels more like a friendship than a partnership? If so, you're not alone. In fact, you're standing at the crossroads of one of the most important and misunderstood challenges in our profession. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get real about why boundaries aren't barriers. They're the foundation of effective, ethical fundraising. Let me start with a story that stuck with me for nearly 3 decades. Early in my career, I heard about a major donor who described his relationship with a fundraiser as so close. He said, "She feels like a daughter to me." Sweet, right? But here's the twist. She never actually asked him for a gift. Their friendship, while genuine, blurred the line so much that she couldn't fulfill her role as an advocate for her organization. This isn't just a one-off scenario. According to the 2023 Fundraising Effectiveness Project, 70% of donors say their relationship with the fundraiser influences their giving decisions. That's a powerful statistic, but it's a double-edged sword. When the relationship becomes too personal, it can create an emotional guilt trap that makes the act of asking for support feel exploitative rather than mission-driven. So today we're going to unpack the dangers of blurred boundaries, the common pain points fundraisers face, and, most importantly, practical strategies you can use to keep your donor relationships healthy, professional, and purpose-driven. Let's be honest, fundraising is all about relationships. We're in the business of connecting people's passions to a greater purpose. But sometimes those connections get a little too close for comfort. Think about it. Have you ever found yourself dreading a donor meeting because you felt like you were asking a friend for money? Or maybe you've avoided making the ask altogether, worried it would damage your personal rapport? Here's what the data tells us. 70% of donors say their relationship with the fundraiser influences their giving decisions. But when those relationships become too personal, it can create what I call an emotional guilt trap. Suddenly, asking for support feels less like stewardship and more like exploitation. Let's break down the most common challenges I've seen and experienced when boundaries get blurry. The first is guilt and hesitation. When a fundraiser feels like they're asking a friend for money, guilt creeps in. This can lead to hesitation, avoidance, or even resentment, and none of that serves your mission. Another challenge is burnout. Emotional entanglement is exhausting. A 2022 study by the Association of Fundraising Professionals found that 45% of fundraisers experience burnout related to the emotional stress of donor relationships. I'll add one more. Ethical dilemmas. The Nonprofit Ethics Survey 2024 reported that 30% of fundraisers have encountered ethical dilemmas due to blurred boundaries with donors. When friendship clouds judgment, it's easy to lose sight of your role as a steward of the organization's mission. Let's pause for a moment. Here's a question for you. Have you ever felt emotionally drained after a donor interaction? Maybe you left a meeting thinking, I'm not sure if I did my job or just tried to keep the peace. If that resonates, you're not alone. In fact, I'd love for you to jot down one recent donor interaction where you felt your boundaries were tested. What would you do differently next time? Here's what I've seen and sometimes learned the hard way when boundaries aren't respected: manipulation and power. Imbalances, friendship can create an unspoken obligation where donors give out of loyalty to you, not to the cause. Loss of objectivity. It becomes harder to assess a donor's true capacity and interest when you're focused on maintaining a personal rapport. Unethical behavior. In extreme cases, blurred boundaries have led to scandals involving favoritism or even illegal activities. And emotional burnout. The emotional burden of asking friends for money can quickly sap your passion and effectiveness. Imagine your donor relationships as a beautiful garden. When you water and nurture the plants with intention, they flourish. But if you let the vines of personal attachment grow wild, they can choke out the very mission you're trying to cultivate. Let's bring this to life with a real-world example. Consider the case of an organization I work with. A major gift officer there developed a close friendship with a donor. Over time, she found herself hesitating to ask for support, worried it would jeopardize their personal connection. Sound familiar? Recognizing the problem, the organization implemented stewardship training and set clear professional boundaries. What happened next was a 27% increase in major gifts within a year. That's right. By focusing on stewardship, not friendship, they unlocked greater generosity and impact. Here's the takeaway. Boundaries aren't barriers. They're the foundation for effective, ethical fundraising. So how do we walk that fine line with grace and confidence? Here are a few core strategies that have served me and my teams well. The first is always focus on the mission. Remind yourself and your donors that your primary responsibility is to the organization, not to any one individual. Keep the mission front and center in every interaction. Think of yourself as a bridge, not a destination. Your job is to connect donors to impact, not to become the endpoint of their giving journey. Another strategy is be transparent. Clearly communicate your role and intentions. Donors respect honesty. When you're upfront about your purpose, you set the tone for a professional relationship. A core strategy that has served me well is professional stewardship. Engage donors in ways that are meaningful but not personal. Invite them to events, share impact reports, celebrate milestones, but avoid crossing into personal territory. Another strategy is seek peer support. When boundaries feel unclear, talk with colleagues or supervisors. Sometimes bringing in another staff member can help reset the relationship. If you're listening to this episode with your team, take 5 minutes after this episode to discuss, where do you see boundaries being tested in your donor relationships? What strategies have worked or not worked for you? I'll add one more strategy. Use tools that reinforce professionalism. Donor management systems are your best friend here. I've found platforms like Donor Perfect, Virtuous, Little Green Light, Classy, and Neon One invaluable for tracking interactions and keeping stewardship professional. If you're not using one of these tools, consider a demo. They're designed to help you keep relationships mission-focused and above board. Let's zoom out for a moment. Why is this conversation so important right now? Donor retention is dropping. Recent reports show that donor retention rates are slipping nationwide. Building trust through professional stewardship, not personal obligation, is more important than ever. Burnout is rising, with 45% of fundraisers reporting burnout. It's clear that emotional entanglement is taking a toll on our sector. Ethics are under the microscope. In today's climate, even the appearance of impropriety can damage your organization's reputation and your own career. So if you want to future-proof your fundraising, boundaries aren't just a nice to have, they're a must. Let's use another analogy. Imagine you're a pilot. Your job is to get your passengers, the donors, from point A to point B safely and efficiently. If you start socializing in the cabin and forget about the controls, you risk the whole flight. Boundaries are your cockpit. They keep you focused, responsible, and able to steer the mission where it needs to go. Or think of boundaries as the guardrails on a winding mountain road. They don't restrict your journey. They keep you from going over the edge. Ready to put this into practice? Here are 5 steps you can take today. The first is review your current donor relationships. Look for signs of blurred boundaries. Are there donors you feel too close to? Number 2 is set clear expectations. Communicate your role and your organization's mission early and often. The third is use donor management tools, track communications, and keep stewardship professional. Number 4 is provide regular stewardship training. Make boundary setting a part of your team's ongoing development. And number 5 is encourage open conversations. Create a culture where it's safe to talk about boundary challenges and to ask for help. Here's a suggestion. After this episode, schedule a 30-minute team meeting to review your donor portfolio. Identify one relationship where boundaries could be strengthened and outline a plan to reset expectations. Here are a few nuggets you can share with your team or on social media. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're bridges to greater impact. Stewardship, not friendship, is the key to sustainable fundraising. When you keep the mission front and center, everyone wins. Healthy boundaries protect your well-being and your organization's reputation. At the end of the day, the most successful fundraisers are those who build relationships rooted in respect, transparency, and shared purpose, not personal obligation. So let's commit to being the best possible stewards of our organization's missions and of our own well-being. If you face challenges with boundaries or have strategies that have worked for you, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn and share your experiences, ask questions, and let's keep this important conversation going. Thank you for joining me on the Intentional Fundraiser podcast. Remember, boundaries aren't barriers. They're the key to transformational fundraising. Until next time, keep transforming your fundraising so you can transform the world.
The Intentional Fundraiser podcast is a Fundraising Transformed original. I'm Trent Thompson, executive producer, CMO, and head of community at Fundraising Transformed and the Modern Institute for Charitable Giving. The Intentional Fundraiser podcast has been recognized by FeedSpot as one of the top 80 fundraising podcasts on the web. This recognition means so much to us, and it wouldn't be possible without your incredible support, encouragement, and thoughtful engagement. Every listen, share, and conversation has helped us grow and reach more passionate fundraisers like you. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to review and rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen. For resources mentioned in this episode and to subscribe to our Scaling Major Gifts newsletter, visit fundraisingtransformed.com.